Before we start this show, just a word from our sponsor, 20 by 20 Apparel. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel brings original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the bloopers, bleeps, and body slams along with the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest that pro wrestling has had to offer. Along with their awesome line of pro wrestling apparel, they do offer many services. In the world of wrestling, there are hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads. Don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all the tees in-house. If you would like to discuss possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, or whatever, drop them a line. Go to 20 by 20 Apparel. That's the number 20x, the number 20 apparel.com. Now, let's get to the show.
Fresh is the word.
I'm Jim Duggan, got long wood for plenty hoes. I keep it fresher than fresh, but you already know. You suckers bummy, I'm money, I got a ton of flows. My weed loud like a motherfucking thunder roll. Your shit quiet like you ballin' on a budget though. We see your kicks and we laugh and yellin' what are those. You see me shining like a suit on puffy. You know my grindin' shit is too strong, buddy. That's why the dude call money. I be stuntin' like it's nothing at all. Cause it's nothing to me, it's probably something to y'all. Trying to smoke like me, then come and fuck with your dog. Got a closet full of kicks, you can't cop at the mall. And I'm fresher than the freshest, you can tell it's in my essence. Bitch, you see the way I'm rapping, yes I do this shit to death. I tell I'm running out of breath, I tell somebody cut a check. But either way you know it's fresh, and either way you know it's fresh. Fresh, we fresh. Fresh, 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 goddammit, we fresh. Fresh, fresh, goddammit, we so damn fresh.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And on Fresh is the Word, we like to deliver wisdom through great stories from the minds of bright creatives of pop culture. Through those stories, we like to dissect the journey of our guests and present actionable lessons and advice for our listeners, no matter what career or avenue of artistry they pursue. And before we get into this episode, I want to give a shout out to Knox Money, Bang Belushi, and Foulmouth for the theme music for Fresh is the Word. And if you would like to support the podcast, you can always go to freshisthepodcast.com and just share any of the links for any of the episodes on any of your social media platforms. And also, you can subscribe to Fresh is the Word pretty much anywhere that podcasts are streamed. And that includes Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, pretty much everywhere. And please rate and review, especially on Apple Podcasts. It will definitely help out the show. If you want to contact me, you can always reach me by email at djkfresh@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at KFresh is the Word, and on Facebook at facebook.com/KFresh. And you can also follow Fresh is the Word on Twitter at Fresh is the Word, and that's is with an IZ, Instagram at Fresh is the Word Podcast, and Facebook at facebook.com/Fresh is the Podcast. And this is episode 155. The guest for this episode is Reb Beach, the original and present guitarist for the rock band Winger, and guitarist since 2002 in Whitesnake. Fresh off celebrating their 40th anniversary, Whitesnake recently released their latest studio album, Flesh and Blood. During our chat, we talked about the new album, working with David Coverdale, the role Reb Beach plays in Whitesnake, having such a storied career in two bands like Winger and Whitesnake, his childhood, his early years in the music industry as a session musician, and how the music of Winger and Whitesnake have been able to stay alive after all these years. And before we get into this interview with Reb Beach, I want to remind you how you can support Fresh is the Word. I am now on Patreon at patreon.com/Fresh is the Word. And as little as $1 per month, you can help support me and Fresh is the Word. And for as little as $3 a month, you'll have access to the Fresh is the Word Patreon-only exclusive podcasts, which I dive deep into my audio archives of interviews that are recorded outside the Fresh is the Word podcast from the past decade or so for that I did for various publications. Some of these weren't even used at all. And already I have interviews with Danny Brown, Cool Keith, and dubstep producer 12th Planet already posted on the Patreon. So go to patreon.com/freshastheword and sign up now. As little as $1 will help out a lot. And there's other tiers available where you can actually be a part of the podcast. So once again, go to patreon.com/freshastheword. All right, let's get on to the interview with Reb Beach. To start things off, you've been a part of Whitesnake since 2002. You're pretty much a veteran of the group now, of the band now. You guys got a new album coming out with Fresh in Blood. What's, these days a lot of older bands might not care too much about making new music. Why do you guys want to do that?
Yeah, I can say I've never done anything that sucks, and I'm pretty proud of that. Winger doesn't make shitty records. We just don't do it. Just never have and never will.
Right.
And with Whitesnake, David had so many ideas coming into it, and I'm a bona fide songwriter, so is David, and you kind of can't go wrong. I've been waiting to write with David for 16 years. So this was my first chance to do it, and it was a different experience than I thought it was going to be. But I did learn that, boy, David is a songwriter. The guy's a songwriter. And he wrote those songs. He didn't write the actual riffs, but he, Still of the Night, he wrote the seeds of those ideas. And he wrote most of the stuff on this new record. So you got good songwriters. David, and also David would never, sacrifice the sound of something just to make the money. He already has all the money in the world. So,
When you're kind of taking this step up and having this collaboration with David Coverdale, who always has a vision of what he wants to do, what are you doing to help facilitate that?
Yeah, you do whatever you can in the 15 minutes that you have. It all goes by very quickly. When you in a writing session with David lasts 15 minutes tops. And he's going bang, 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 bang. He's talking fast, and you got to stick right with him. And if you don't, you're out of the game. Boom, he'll write it with someone else.
Right.
You just gotta be coming up with ideas off the top of your head that inspire him. If you try and sit there and play him a Rush riff or anything progressive, you're out of the game. You just need to, pick up that acoustic. He responds the best if you play him your idea on acoustic as opposed to playing him a tape of something you recorded, 2 years ago.
Okay.
The least production possible on playing David ideas, because he likes to have the production ideas. He's like, we could put strings on this and maybe a didgeridoo, or maybe a banjo. I hear a banjo. So the more you can do to inspire him, the better. I forget what the question was.
Oh, I was just asking, how do you go about this collaborative process? What do you, and kind of extending on that, what do you feel like you need to do to sort of tap in to what David might like. What do you feel like how do you connect with him to be able to continue on, doing stuff that is good?
Well, luckily, thank the Lord in heaven that I have a good ear. It's a damn good ear. And I was born with it. And, I was playing the piano when I was 4 years old. And my parents thought I was a prodigy, but I wasn't. I just had a good ear. So when David plays me one of his ideas, I have a basic knowledge of songwriting that I learned from Kip Winger, who is a compositional genius.
Right.
In arranging and composition. And so he taught me the basics of songwriting, where to put the bridge, should we do a double chorus? Is this a good place for the solo section? Stuff like that. And I've gotten pretty good at it over the years. And when David plays me an idea, it's my job to instantly hear, okay, what does it need? Where do we need to go from here? And, pretty much dot the I's and cross the T's on the seed ideas that David has. So it works out well.
Yeah, I know. I've heard so many stories about David in regards, and I know he does not like to waste time. I remember hearing a story from Joe Elliott from Def Leppard, my favorite band of all time, and he was saying that this was like back in the 80s. I think they were, Def Leppard was doing Hysteria, and they were in the same buildings. The studios were in the same building, and he went into a session, a Whitesnake session, and David Coverdale nailed his vocals in one take, and it just totally made Joe Elliott feel inferior. Like, how is it like seeing, David Coverdale work?
Well, I've worked with him on vocals before, and I liked it, and I think he feels comfortable with me because we've been working together for so long now, and he trusts my ear. Sometimes he might sing something a little flat, and I'll say, you're a little flat on this note, and he'll get it right. But like on this last record, I wasn't there for his vocals as much on this last record. I was there a lot for the record before it. I did the vocals with him. But David is working with David. He likes to be a part of every facet of the making of the record. So he wants to be there when you're cutting guitars, and he wants to be there when you're playing the keyboards and doing background vocals and just for the whole thing. So he has ideas for everything.
Yeah, you mentioned before, how people thought about you when you were a kid. They're throwing the word prodigy around. And over all these years, you've been a part of a lot of great stuff and work with so many great musicians. Looking back, how does it feel to, have the career that you've had?
It feels great. It's awesome. I was voted most likely to be a rock star in high school, and I'm not saying I'm a rock star. I'm just saying I've definitely lived the life of one, and continue to do so today. And I feel very blessed, but I'm just I'm lucky. I had a stage mom who put me up on stage in 5th grade. My son's much better than that little boy, and I was like, I was like, think about the sun, Pippin. And I was up there, Oliva, like in these weird little pants, just always on stage. So it came very naturally to me to get in a rock band and be on stage.
What kind of a kid were you? What were some of the things that you did? What were some of the things you like to enjoy to listen to or watch or do?
I was I was a rich kid. Mom, Dad had lots of money, and so I went to these really good schools. So mom and dad could get rid of me. They would send me to these fancy ass schools, but they were really good schools, and they were especially good schools for creative kids. And I was a creative kid. I went to the North Country School in Lake Placid, New York, where you grew your own food and, climbed the Adirondack Mountains and, raised your own animals. And then I went to the Putney School in Putney, Vermont with Bob Dylan's daughter, Maria Dillon, and, all these other rich kids were there, but cool rich kids, and everyone smoked weed and you could be naked and it was cool, like a lot of skinny dipping and drugs and everything. And it was great. And then Dad started losing his money. And I went to Fox Chapel High School in Pittsburgh, where we lived. And so it was really different for me going to a normal school that wasn't out in the woods, where you could call the teacher by their first name and you didn't have a hall pass. A hall pass to me was the most ridiculous thing I ever even saw. Yeah. And so, but in high school, I started really doing the music. I had 5 music classes in high school. And that's where I really started learning. But I forget, what was the question again?
Oh, just how what kind of a kid you were.
Oh yeah, no, I was a rich kid, but I was real good looking, and I had a lot of friends. Like, I had friends. There was the burnouts and the chaps. So there was the people that smoked weed and were called the burnouts, and the chaps at Fox Chapel, where we lived, were, the guys that wore the Izod shirts, and played golf. And so since I was the head of the concert choir, I had a lot of friends in the choir, and I had a lot of friends that were burnouts that hung out in the smoking room, and they would all come to my house, because I had my own property on 11 acres in Fox Chapel. And it was called the Pleasure Dome. And people would come to my house after high school, and we'd have these huge parties. We'd drive to West Virginia, which was only 45 minutes away. And the drinking age was 18 there. And we'd get a big barrel every single day. We had parties at my house with like 20 kids. I had a pool and a tennis court, and my parents were never around. It was my own apartment on the property. It was in the barn, so it was far away from everything else. And it was the life. I had more sex then than I did when I, got on MTV,
The difference between going to an art school and then, going to a public school, what was the difference for you? Was there anything that affected you artistically from going to both?
Yeah, it was a big shock. I thought it was a joke. I just thought it was a big joke. The public high school, after being in a school that was, like I said, you call your teachers by their first name, and it was real laid back. And if you didn't feel like going to class, you didn't have to, it was that kind of vibe. And then going right into a rigid school system was tough for me, and I rebelled for sure. I would leave school. I drove a car there when you weren't supposed to drive a car there, and I left school all the time. I failed gym because they gave me basketball because I didn't sign up for anything. I didn't know how or know that you had to. So I got put in basketball, and I had never seen a basketball or held a basketball. And so the first day the coach is like, "Get out there and play." And I'm like, "I don't know how to play. How do you play this game?" He just gave me the ball and said, "Just go and do it," And so someone threw me the ball, and I dribbled it the wrong way down the court, and everyone laughed at me. So I never went back, and I got an F in gym and had to go to summer school.
When do you feel like you got your first big break in the music industry?
Well, that's easy. I moved to New York City, and I got a job as a singing waiter. I had a friend who lived in New York, and I moved in with him. I was a singing waiter for 6 months, and I was the only guy who wasn't an aspiring actor. They were all, wanted to be Broadway singers, or were on Broadway, and me, And I would hang around on 48th Street at Manny's and at all the guitar stores there, Sam Ash, and I got to know all the people that worked there. And then I heard about an audition for Fiona on Atlantic Records, and it was way out in Long Island. I remember taking the train out there, and I got there. There was like 15 guys all sitting in a room, and all of them had spandex and big hair, and I was wearing exactly what I'm wearing now, and exactly what I've worn for my entire life: jeans, a t-shirt, and a hoodie, and that's what I was wearing. And I walked in, and there was Joe Franco and Donnie Kisselback, Fiona's band, and they were wearing the exact same thing I was wearing: jeans and t-shirts and a hoodie. And we played 30 seconds of one song, and they said, "You've got the job." So I did the guitar on the Fiona record after they had a handful of guitar players before me doing it. I guess they were looking for a certain thing. And I did it, and they were happy with it. And Beau Hill was the producer, and he said, listen, I don't want to insult you, but how does $500 sound for playing the whole record? And I was like, $500? My God, thank you. That's incredible. And, $500 to me was like $5 million at that time. So word got around that this kid, he's good looking, he's easy to work with, he plays great, he'll do whole records for $500. And I got work. I did the Bee Gees, Shaka Khan, Howard Jones, Kenny Loggins. I started being the go-to rock session guy at Atlantic Records. And of course, that's how I got my foot in the door. But I was, I joined the union and got paid what you were supposed to be paid eventually.
What did you learn during that time being a session musician?
What did I learn? That's when I was learning from Beau Hill, who was really talented. I started to learn about songwriting from him. And when I did the Twisted Sister thing, Dee Schneider came in, and he had these verses and choruses to these really good songs. It was for an album called Love is for Suckers, which is a great record. And so it was my job to finish the songs with Dee. And so I wrote, bridges and outros and sections to just finish his song ideas. That was a really, really great experience. I never laughed so hard in my life than I did in the month that I worked with Dee Schneider.
I bet.
He is a funny guy, man.
I bet. You mentioned before that you came into this, that opportunity, you came to that session, just wearing the same stuff that you wear today all through your career. Is there an air of authenticity that you feel like that you've lent that has helped you, stay in the music industry all these years?
Maybe that I'm just a big kid, I've always dressed the same. I've always had the same attitude. I drink beer every night. I still live the same exact way I did when I was 16 years old. So that'll probably catch up to me here pretty quick. But I still have that thing, sometimes when I'm up there with David and he does his scream in Still of the Night, I get goosebumps and go like, wow, how lucky am I to be up here, in front of 20,000 people at 56 years old. And that still happens.
Right. You're a part of this really big band with, you still are with Winger, but you're a part of Winger during this. They're huge. They have all these hits, and And I think the underappreciated thing of Winger is that everybody in that band was so well versed in music in so many different ways. What's your, feeling about that time, when you first started Winger and you were working on these big hits? Did you have any idea that any of that would have happened? And like, what's your idea of just everybody in that band?
Well, that's two questions, but let me make it one here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, what was the first question? I'm gonna say the first question again.
Basically, how was it, during that time, working with everybody in that group?
I got it. It was Winger was me and Kip, and when we first met, we hated each other. Literally hated each other. He thought I was full of myself, and I thought he was full of himself. And Kip, when you meet Kip, he's not so much the way he used to be anymore. But he is a little bit. He's kind of soft spoken and monotone. So he talks like this, like Morris the cat. And it doesn't go up or down. It just stays right here. And that's just the way he talks, And then, I went to Denver, and it turns out half the people in Denver talk like that. They're all like, "Hey, it's good to meet you. How are you?" So we, when I finally got over that and hung out with each other a little bit, realized that we liked each other, especially the first day that we wrote together. It was Beau Hill who said, "Look, Reb, you're great at coming up with guitar riffs. Kip, you're an awesome arranger and compositionalist and a composer, rather. I don't think compositionalist is a word. Anyway, put us together in a room, and we wrote 17, Madeleine, and Time to Surrender all in one day."
Oh.
The seeds for those ideas, yeah, and all in one day. And I didn't know I was a songwriter until Kip showed me. He's like, when I played him the lick for 17, he said, "That's a chorus." And I said, "No way. I said, that's not a chorus." I'm like, it's just a lick that I play sometimes. It kind of, it sounds like Rat. It's kind of cool, And he's like, "No, trust me, that's a chorus. Now go to the key of the A." And he turned on the drum machine, and he said, "Play a riff." And I played the riff. First take, I just played whatever came to my head, and it was the riff that became the verse. And that's how we write. And hopefully that's how it will go when I write with him in August. But the Winger thing, we were coming out in 1989. So we're an 80s band that came out in 89.
Ooh, that's tough.
Yeah. And when we came out, I mean, it had all been done before, and we were just kind of riding on the heels of the 80s sound. And we were put up on the shelf. That was going to be it for Winger. We were just going to be another album that's up on the shelf. There's just hundreds of albums that Atlantic paid all kinds of money for that just didn't take off. It didn't, for whatever reason, nobody took the bait. And then Rod Morgenstein knew a guy at MTV who got our video played at 2:55 in the morning on a Saturday night on Headbangers Ball. One play at 2:55 in the morning changed everything. All the radio stations started getting calls the next day. "What's this band Winger? What was that?" And Madeleine took off. But even then, it took a long time for us to go gold. It took 6 months for that thing to go gold. And we had to buy onto the tour. We made no money with Winger. We signed it all the way to Beau Hill, all of it. Just, publishing, half the publishing, points on the record, of management, T-shirts, all of that. It was just the worst deal in history. I'd be a billionaire if I didn't sign that contract.
Oh, damn.
He said, and Bo Hill said, if you don't sign it, we'll find another guitar player. We'll find someone else who will. But I was a naive little kid, and I wanted to be on the cover of Guitar World. That's all I cared about. And that's what I wanted. So I signed it, and I'm glad I did sign it because I had the success that I did. But I probably didn't need to sign it because I wrote all the songs anyway, so I still would have made the money.
Right. All these years later, you're still doing Winger. You've been a part of Whitesnake since 2002, and like those bands were bands that were huge in the 80s, like with Wingers, the end of the 80s. The 90s were tough for a lot of bands coming from the 80s, and I don't mean just like those types of bands, even like thrash metal bands and a lot of rock bands. Everybody, the 90s was tough. How do you feel like, this style of music that you've been able to do has been able to get past that time to where now in 2019 you can do concerts, you can put out albums, you have fans still around?
How is that possible, are you saying?
Yeah, how do you feel like that was possible? Like that it just stayed around in some way?
It seems to me that it would. It's, being a musical guy, I'm just a music guy. I listen to that music, and it's happy, good time music, and it's got great hooks, and you sing along to it, and you feel good. You feel like drinking a beer and smiling. What's wrong with that, And then this 90s music, I would listen to it and go like, why do people like this? It's such a bummer, it just brings you down. It's like, ooh, I don't get it. It's like dark bummer music. I'm not surprised that the 80s thing is still going strong. And I see our audiences, and it's not, she's only 17, she's only 47 now. And it's an older audience, but they bring their kids and they all love it. And, the young people love it too. It's kind of undeniable. We're doing these songs with Whitesnake and our live thing. We're doing some new stuff, and the people learn the song after only hearing it once. They hear the chorus to "Hey You" once, and then with the rest of the night they're singing "Hey You" the whole place. It's just easy to understand. It rocks, so you can bang your head, and it's not negative.
Right.
It's about sex and fun stuff.
Why with Whitesnake do you feel like your new music people will grab on and learn the new lyrics to right there on the spot, whereas maybe other old bands, like their new music is time to go to the bathroom?
Yeah, man, I hear you. God, someone just told me a story about Tesla that a bunch of people at their show got up and left because Tesla decided to change their sound. Apparently, they went Def Leppard. They got Phil Collins to produce their album and write all the lyrics. And I heard one song and I couldn't believe it. It sounded exactly like Def Leppard.
They've been doing nothing but touring Def Leppard basically for the past couple of years.
Yeah, they're all good friends.
Yeah.
And I love Def Leppard.
Yeah. Tesla kind of put them on to begin with, so they're kind of, helping them out now.
Yeah, but Tesla isn't a Def Leppard band. They
Right.
were always, more raw.
Yeah.
And so I heard that a lot of people got up and left when they started playing their new shit. That's what Eddie Trunk told me. But our stuff, I keep waiting for people to get up and leave, and none of them do, because it's so easy. It's
Wow.
Shut Up and Kiss Me. The whole band stops. The band stops, and then we go, "Shut Up and Kiss Me," and everyone is just singing along with it. And then, hey, you, it's just 2 words, and you scream them out, hey, you know. So it's just really, you know, ABC rock. And you kind of can't go wrong when you're playing in an arena. So I'm really, really encouraged that it's going over big time live.
Right.
And if the album's not even out yet, it's crazy.
Yeah. I always like to ask this question during my interviews is, what's sort of a nugget of knowledge, you know, from your life or career that anybody listening to this, no matter what avenue of artistry they're coming from, could sort of project onto their own life?
Wait a second. Say that again?
What sort of like lesson from your life or career that anybody listening to this, doesn't matter if they like rock music or not, if they're an artist, if they're a comedian, doesn't any sort of avenue of artistry, a lesson that they could, you know, that you could say from your life that they could project into their own life?
I'd say that the best advice I can give is to stay positive, is to, you know, think before you speak. You want to be someone who's easy to work with, you know, and you want to make people happy. And you want to be prepared, do your gig, you know, don't show up not knowing the stuff, you know the stuff inside and out. And you know, you just kind of want to keep it up tempo and positive and joyous, and you'll do well. That's the best advice I can give, because, you know, the guys that don't last are the ones that are dicks or are, you know, obnoxious. You know, like no one wants to be on the bus with that guy, you know, or egotistical. The ego is the thing. It's like, I don't get, but, you know, it's there. There is that lead singer disease, and, you know, and guitar players have it too. It's not just lead singers, but sometimes you come across these guys that just think that they are gods, you know, and it's just, that is such a turnoff. I mean, in my line of work, you know, but it's common.
And I always like to end my interviews with the same question, and if it's okay, and it's okay if you don't have an answer to this, who is somebody that's been a part of your life or career that I could realistically interview for this podcast that would have some good stories or lessons to talk about?
Well, Kip Winger is amazing. He's a genius. And yeah, he'd have a lot of good stories for sure about me. I mean, we're best friends.
Cool. Yeah, it's been great talking with you. Where can people go online to get more information about what you're up to? You know, anything you have to plug, anything about Whitesnake, anything about Winger?
Yeah, I got a new solo album coming out in the fall on Frontiers of just instrumental stuff,
okay,
guitar, music. And then Winger's right in August. Yeah, my website's not really updated. I got to get on that. But, you know, just on my Facebook page.
Cool. Yeah, maybe we can talk again when the other stuff comes out. All right, that was my interview with Reb Beach. The new Whitesnake album, Flesh and Blood, is available now anywhere you can buy music. There will be links in the show notes for this episode at freshasthepodcast.com to where you can get more information about how to purchase Flesh and Blood and to follow whatever Reb Beach and Whitesnake is up to these days, tour dates and whatnot. All right. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.